I'm excited to be the facilitator moderator today. My name is Daisha Price. So as the screen says, this is a part of a listening tour. And I will explain shortly, but what that means as far as a fishbowl discussion. So we want to give people who might still be outside a moment to come inside. And we are going to first invite Pastor Overman up to do our invocation.
Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to always recognize God as we move forward in any effort. So tonight, if everyone would pray with me. Father, I thank you tonight for your amazing grace and love for us as your people. We thank you that you brought us together with like minds and like hearts to really bring about necessary change. Give us direction and guidance. Let us listen with your heart, see with your eyes, reach with your hands, and always operate in love. This I pray for us all this evening. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay. So what we're going to be doing this evening this is our agenda for today. So we're going to have a welcome, and you all know we have 90 minutes, so we're going to be very expedient in what we do and be participatory so that we can get everything that we need to do done for the evening. We're going to start off with welcomes. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on introductions, but we do want to introduce the idea of what we're doing and let you know who is a part of this event and the future events that we'll be having. We're going to talk about some agreements to make sure that we're all in agreement to what we're going to do this evening so that we can, again, be as successful and effective as we can be. And we're going to start off with fishbowl questions. We'll start with our civilians first, and we have some questions that have been submitted to them. Then we'll summarize that, make sure that people are hearing what they've said. And then we will have a second fishbowl where law enforcement and elected officials will come up as well. And then we'll summarize that. And then we'll wrap up with talking about what our plans are for building momentum. So just to get a sense of what the order of the evening is, I didn't want anybody to feel surprised. So this is what we'll be doing today, okay? So, welcome. So, welcome. And of course, I am not the mayor of Lavonia, nor am I the police chief of Lavonia, but we would like to have someone from Lavonia come up to welcome us because they have invited us into their space. And welcome all of you to our first listening session from Livonia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deja. Hi, I am Maureen Miller-Brosnan and proudly the mayor of the city of Livonia, and so want to welcome you all here this evening warmly. We're excited about the event. We're excited about having you here to moderate it. We're excited about the elected officials that have joined us this evening. So this is a big event for Livonia, and it's one that early on when it was discussed, our police chief Curtis Cade raised his hand quickly and said, Livonia would like to be first. So I wanted to talk tonight just briefly about the significance of going first, and especially as it relates to us working together as a region and how important I believe that is. So when the listening tour was first suggested, we jumped up, we said we'd be first. We all gathered here together tonight, and for the first time, we're going to be embarking on a conversation that might get a little bit uncomfortable, but it's an important conversation to embark on. It's one that over the course of time has been fraught with failure at times. Sometimes there have been items that have been left on the table that have been unattended to. When we talk about the issue of systemic racism, this is an issue that clearly, as a society, as a nation, as a world, we haven't quite dealt with yet. So tonight, as we embark on this conversation, we embark on it knowing not exactly how things are going to turn out. And it's that uneasiness, that uncertainty, but that willingness to be vulnerable and embrace and hear and learn everything that is said tonight that is potentially going to bring about some of the greatest change, potentially going to bring about some of the greatest opportunity. So tonight we gather as listeners, we gather as learners, we gather as leaders, so that we can deal with a story that is our story. And sometimes, for as hard as it is to face, it is in not dealing with it that ultimately we find our greatest difficulty. So tonight, welcome to Lavonia, welcome to the conversation. We are so grateful to have you all here.
Thank you. So what people can see is that we are doing this welcome, although we asked a representative from Livonia to represent and welcome us specifically to the city. What you will see is that it's actually a collaboration, a partnership for progress. If you've heard of Partnership for Progress, raise your hand. Okay, you see that small amount because it's new, it's brand new. And so you all are the first. Give yourself a hand. You are the first ever to be a part of the listening tour with the new Partnership for Progress that you may have never heard about, but now you can tell all of your friends and family. So what is a Partnership for Progress? It's a conference of Western Wayne and Western Wayne County NAACP. So when we talk about the Conference of Western Wayne, the police chiefs represent Belleville. So you could yell if that's your city. Belleville? Anybody? Okay. Dearborn? Oh. So next time, this is streaming live. So next time, if your city is not represented, we want to see you here. Dearborn Heights? All right. Garden City? Inkster? Canton Charter Township? I missed a whole line. Lavonia? Northville? Plymouth? Romulus? Wayne? Westland? Okay. Huron Charter Township? All right, we got to get them here. Northville Charter Township as well as Northville, Plymouth Charter Township, Redford Charter Township, Sumter Township, and Van Buren Charter Township. Okay. All right. So we know that that's where the police chiefs represent, but also Western Wayne County NAACP represents the citizens in the communities of Allen Park, Belleville, Brownstown, Canton, Dearborn Heights, Ecorse, Garden City, Inkster, Lincoln Park, Livonia, Melvindale, New Boston, Northville, Plymouth, Redford, River Rouge, Romulus, Sumter, Taylor, Van Buren, Wayne, Westland, and Wyandotte. That's a lot of area to cover. So when we talk about this partnership, it's about having people come together and talk about what do people want, what do people need, and really trying to move forward. So I said partnership for what? Oh, no. Partnership for what? Right, so not partnership for stagnation, right? We're not doing that. We're not being stagnant. We're talking about progress. So these are the people that are represented. So as we move around, we invite anyone from any of these communities, anywhere can really come, but it will be collectively joining together as a united front. So me, I'm your facilitator. So I'm Daisha Price. Is it Daisha? My daddy's name was David. My mama's name is Sharon. Daisha. Okay? Daisha Price. I am a social worker by profession and training, and I actually like to live under that. So no wonder I'm here. The other places that I represent, 2 places that I'm representing tonight, is Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. If you have heard of them, raise your hand. All right, there we go. And then I also represent University of Michigan School of Social Work as a faculty member there. So that is who I am, and I'm really, really, really excited to be here. I have cards, but I also wanted to put my email address up just in case people want to reach out to me after today or later on as we continue our listening sessions. So what are our goals? A lot of people say, what are we here for? What is the point of this? Why are you doing this? We want to talk about identifying the wants, needs, and desires of the public. The what? All right. So that the agencies can be intentional about identifying priorities. Identifying what? Priorities. Develop a plan and do what? Act. Say it again. Act. What do you think they want to do after they act? Evaluate. And finally, and maintain what? Okay, accountability. So when we come in, we're not talking about, okay, we're going to do that was cute. Okay, we're leaving. Bye. No, we're not doing that. We're going to continue to build upon every single session, everything that we learn, and start doing these things. And having a mutual goal. Now, one thing that everybody could decide upon was a mutual goal in having excellence in policing and public safety. And NAACP told me the goal is envisioning the best public safety for every resident. That's our vision. Okay? So that's what people want. We don't know how that'll evolve or what that looks like or what it's going to take to get there, but that's why we're here together. So I don't know, some people who know me know that I like to do these things called Poll Everywhere. So a poll everywhere, I'm going to ask you to get out your cell phone, if you have it handy, and I want you to think about what words do you think of when you see a badge? Everyone, anyone here. What words do you think of when you see a badge? Now what you do is you go to POLLEV, like Victor.com, /Daisha Price, let me spell that for you, DAICIAPRICE 740. You can go online or you can text the number 22333 and in the text line put partnership and push send, and then it will allow you to add words. I want people to take a moment to just add, what do you, and I'm going to do it myself. What words do you think of when you see a badge? So again, if you get your cell phone and go and try to text in the 2 spot, it'll be 22333. Text partnership there. So partnership and then put in your word. And you could do it more than once. What are some words that you think of? Okay, so for those of you who have not done this before, what this is this Wordle is putting up different words that people are saying they think of when they see a badge. So there are some words that are going to come up smaller, which means less people responded with that word. The words that come out very large are words that have been submitted frequently. So what words are you seeing? Authority, fear, brutality. Authority is still staying large. Power, brutality, you can see that. Okay. Authoritative. So I'm going to show some of the things that I see that you may not be able to see because I'm a little closer. So I also see security. I also see safety. I also see service. I also see groups. I also see hungry, okay, which is, I know it's dinner time. Powerful. So we see all of these things of what people think of, but in the middle, it comes up, what is the largest word? Authority. So what I just want people to get a sense of what do people think, and there may be people online putting responses in as well, but we want to change this narrative, right? We want to have a narrative that when people see badge, they are not thinking about death and thinking more. We would like to see more of things like community and safety, and what are some of the other things that I'm seeing? Response. A lot of those words, we would like to see those be larger. And in order to do that, we have to change some of our perception. And in order to do that, we have to also talk about what we need, what we want, what we desire. And police, law enforcement, elected officials, that means you have to listen, right? So listen, and you also have to share, okay? So, what's a fishbowl? A lot of people are like, what is a fishbowl? It is not a large drink tonight. That is not what we're doing today. If you have been on University of Michigan's campus, that is something that people do like to partake in, but that's not what we're doing tonight. A fishbowl is actually an opportunity for people to listen and share without responding. So many times sometimes we want to share because we want somebody to respond, but tonight, as people are listening and as you're sharing, they're just gonna listen. People are just going to listen. What happens is that one group has about 20 minutes to share and respond to questions and topics. Okay, so we're gonna have people up front. This is a fishbowl. Imagine this as being a fishbowl. And our group, the people that are in the fishbowl, will respond to questions and topics that have been asked of them. Everyone else in the auditorium will listen. You're gonna do what? Okay. Just want to make sure you know. So this special way of having a discussion that may feel a little odd to people is designed to offer the perspective of other views and ideas and offers a beginning to a dialogue. So oftentimes people want to jump right into dialoguing, but really we haven't even had an opportunity to dialogue amongst ourselves, right? So that's what this is designed to do, to have different perspectives centered at each time. So you all put up authority. Right now, whoever's in a fishbowl is the authority of their experience in a fishbowl. And everybody else is just watching them swim around, okay? So where did we get these questions and topics from? Where do you think we got them from? It's your only time to talk after the fishbowl. You don't have nothing to say. From where? The people. Now, who said that? Raise your hand. How do you know I got them from the people? Thank you. Thank you. So if he was like, I don't know where they got them questions from. Ain't nobody asked that. Where did you get it from? Where did I get it from? She has my back. She, as I already said, she got the email. I sent it out from my personal email. I sent it out. I say, what questions do you have? Are you civilian? Are you law enforcement? Who are you? I didn't ask race demographics. I just asked, who do you represent? Tell me what questions, what stories you want to share, all of those things. So that's where it's coming from. They didn't touch them before I saw, they all came to me, okay? Now what we are going to do is, because we only have 20 minutes or so, well, depending on what time we can really get started, but any questions that are not answered, so I don't want you to think, so we put together things. I put together things, and then I would be remiss if I didn't say my husband was here with me. Can you raise your hand? He had a job here. I was so nervous to come. I didn't know how many people was going to be in the auditorium. But anyway, so, and you all have to understand, when you do these things, you know your partners are always like, okay, you staying up all night still doing a thematic analysis? Yes, I am. So if we don't have time to get to all of the questions, they will be shared as a part of the ongoing process of planning and prioritizing and making sure people hear your stories, and it may come up at a different listening session as well, right? So we kind of wanted to start. Where do we start with? And it will be shared without identifying information. So I just wanted to share that with everyone and just make sure you know I didn't make these questions up myself. All right, so these are the agreements. I have rules. I do not like rules. I like to break rules, but please don't break my rules today. Okay? I'm not playing. I'm not playing. Don't break my rules. So I'm not even going to say rules. I'm going to say agreements, and we're all going to agree to these things. The first one is that everyone is a teacher and a learner. So even though I'm a faculty member, I feel like I'm learning, you're learning, we're all doing this together. I said this was the what listening tour? First. So don't judge me, right? I'm learning, you're learning, we're going to teach each other some things. The next one is when people are in the fishbowl, this is a reminder for them too. I'm going to be trying to ask them to be mindful of their airtime even when they're in the fishbowl. So if you're talking or responding more than 3 minutes, I'm going to ask them, okay, so can someone else respond as well? So it's not that I want to cut them off. It's not that I don't want to hear them. I just want everyone to be mindful of their airtime. I want people in the fishbowl to try to use I statements. So own your statement. Don't generalize it. Make it be about what you want to say. Own it, okay? Refrain from using obscene, violent, abusive language and behavior. So I don't know how old everyone is in the room, but we want to be mindful of that. It is going to be live, so we do want to be mindful of different people's way that they like to engage in dialogue. So please refrain from those things. And lastly, people are the experts of their own experience. So even when you're in the fishbowl, remember that every fish is not going to be like you, okay? So, civilians, do you agree to my agreements? All right, so can you come on up and take a seat? Give them a hand. Civilians. So we have some questions, and some of you, I've tried to give you guys kind of a gist of what people wanted to hear from you. And so what I want everybody to recognize is that I'm actually pretty excited about our group. So we have lots of different people from throughout the Western Wayne community representing different things, different ideas, different views, and all agreed without any duress to participate, right? Nobody forced you to be here? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to get that disclaimer out. So didn't want you to feel too just taken aback by some of the questions, but one of the first questions, before we start, let me make sure you all know, what are you supposed to be doing? Doing what? Okay, just want to make sure. One of the first questions we want to start with is, what do you feel is the primary responsibility of law enforcement? What do you feel is the primary responsibility of law enforcement? And anyone can start. You want to go?
I think the primary response is to make your presence known so that when people see you, they feel protected and safe wherever they are.
Okay. Yeah, just flip it on.
It should be to promote peace. It shouldn't be about power, always seeking power and promoting violence. It has to be about helping people. There doesn't seem to be any humanity at all in the police force, and I would like to see that more.
Okay. Other thoughts? And if you want the mic, just raise your hand so someone can pass it down to you. And I'm going to also ask, I can put out these pipes too.
I think it's important as well to understand their role in terms of primary role is to protect. But I think it's also important that we expect them to work consistent with their training. In other words, I think there are a lot of things that we expect of police that they haven't necessarily been completely prepared for. So when they're prepared, when they're properly trained, I think they can do that work much more effectively.
Okay. Do you have a thought?
I wanted to agree with you because I said protect would be the best thing, but their thing is to protect and to serve. So I wanted to make sure that we included serving in that, as well as when things are going on in the community, they can actually serve us to make sure we're feeling safe as well as protected.
I think also just building on the protection is a recognition that you are not protecting the community from us. You're not protecting the community, well, I can't really say us because I'm not the person who normally gets stopped and harassed by the police. But you're not protecting the community from the community. Yes, there are bad actors that you're watching for, and that's what you're trying to do, but the view should not be that everyone you encounter is a potential criminal that you have to watch for.
Okay. I think I saw a thought down there.
I think also that the police knows every street in our city, and that part of their job should be to help build the community and not tear it down.
Okay. You had a thought? Still off.
Hello.
Okay, there you go.
I also think the main priority of police should be able to help those in need. You know, if someone calls for a wellness check, someone should not end up dead because of that. And I feel like, you know, they all should come into a situation with a peace of mind and assess and analyze and critically analyze the situation before just automatically using force. So I think it should be about peace and communication. A lot of times police officers don't even ask what's going on. They just, hands up, you know. It's like, whoa, you know, hold on. So they just need to talk to people before analyzing, before using their force.
Okay. You ever thought about what you feel the primary responsibility of law enforcement is?
Yeah, I really agree with her that it's about true public safety, and public safety for everyone, and it has got to be equitable, and it needs to be something where police respond, and it's not necessarily responding with that big word that we saw up there, authority. That's not what we need all the time. Sometimes you just need someone to help, and I didn't see a lot of help up there. And I really feel like helping is a big responsibility for the law enforcement. It shouldn't just be law enforcement. When we hear law enforcement and authorities, I think that's actually kind of violent language compared to saying something like public safety.
Okay. Any other thoughts or responses to each other about because you guys have different ideas about what the primary responsibility of law enforcement is. So I just want to leave it open for one more moment to see if people want to respond.
I would just reinforce what the protect and serve, right? And I think the emphasis has to be on serve at this point, right? I mean, because, you know, police officers encounter people in distress, right? And often the best response is to serve, to be a servant, to listen, to figure out what that situation demands in the most peaceful way possible.
Okay. Are you going to add something?
Yeah, quick add. Somebody mentioned training, and I think in any profession, ongoing training, continuing education is really important. And we'd like to be able to, citizens, be able to see that that is happening, that ongoing training is happening for our police officers.
Okay. This one right next to you.
Just also to add to that training piece, yes, training is important, but we need to terminate the officers that haven't followed rules at all. Training can't help them. And, you know, the local officials need to make sure that officer isn't hired either. And it just needs to be a better process of how the police are managed. Training, every single thing about it.
So one of the things that came out from the things that people shared is about protection, service, helping. Those were some common things that I heard, and that goes really great into another question that was asked, and that is, when we talk about protection and service and helping, what are some of the primary challenges and issues that you feel are present in the community? And how do you think that law enforcement and elected officials can partner with the community to help with those issues?
I think dialogue is central to anything productive. What I mean by that is the better I know someone, the more I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. The easier it is to speak with them, the less inclined I am to characterize them negatively. So to whatever degree that the police force and the members of it can interact with the community in terms of coming to know each other in that regard, ahead of time, the better, I think.
Okay. Other thoughts? What are some of the primary issues that need this protection, service, help?
Yeah, my name's Jamie White. I'm Director of Crisis Services at Hagera Health and work in the mental health space every day. And I think that we are in the midst of a mental health crisis. As a result of the recent pandemic, there's been a huge increase in the need for mental health services and substance use. We've had the opportunity to have a lot of positive experiences with law enforcement and many of the departments that are here tonight. We partner to co-respond in the community to people that are vulnerable and in need of those services. But I think that could definitely be expanded, and expanding the officers' training through programs like CIT or managing mental health crises to really give them the tools necessary to respond appropriately in the community when they encounter those vulnerable populations.
Thank you.
And can you say your question one more time, please?
Yeah, so what would you say is one of the primary issues or concerns within the community, and what can law enforcement and elected officials do to partner to help? So it's kind of building off of people said they want safety, protection, building community. What are some of those issues that need protection, need safety?
Yes, and I would say overall, defunding the police would be number one, and spreading that money to the communities in schools, mental health, taking the police out of schools that doesn't make you want to learn. And then also providing public transit for Lavonia, for example, which doesn't have any, and having public transit helps a lot of minorities. So that's one thing, or that's a few things. Also as well, just trying to get to know the community, like not always presenting yourself with a weapon that doesn't help people. And that doesn't make African Americans want to move somewhere. Just seeing people with guns all the time, that's how we see them. Knowing how Livonia is, that's not going to help. Other than that, I think as well, making sure that the information showing the racial demographics of who's pulled over, presenting that to the public on a monthly basis. You shouldn't have to file something just to get that information. That should be made public because you serve the public.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
is it me? Okay. Okay, so the transparency, definitely, that goes a long way to helping people in the community feel as though we're kind of on a team and it's not us versus them. But I do want to say, and this is kind of uncomfortable, but we have to acknowledge the racial profiling in Livonia. That is something that I have heard from people of color, and it's something that I myself, when I was younger and growing up here, I have to admit I kind of made fun of it, and it's really terrible to say that now. But I used to drive around, late at night with my other white friends, And we would see someone pulled over, and we knew, you just knew when you drove by, you were going to see the driver of that car as a black person. And it was DWB or NIL. And that's something, I graduated from Churchill in '01, okay? That's a long time ago, but it's not that long ago. It's not long enough ago to say we no longer have any kind of racial profiling in Livonia, right? It was just something that we knew, and we sat with that. And we kind of laughed it off, we're not going to be the ones that get pulled over. We're these, 3 white girls driving around in Dad's car. It's not going to be us, no matter what we had been doing, no matter if we made a wrong turn or had a taillight out, even if it was 3 in the morning. I didn't have any fear of that. And I'm ashamed to say that was something I laughed about when I'm younger. And now as a Livonia citizen, I have to mention, because we have got to change that.
Pastor Overman?
So getting my mic on, I appreciate your transparency there and your honesty, because I think until we can have these kind of conversations and look at steps to moving away from the places that's caused us all a lot of pain, then we won't get anywhere. And I know a lot of people, probably even people sitting in the room, have very little expectation of the outcome here. But I think the outcome will be as much as we look forward to it being as a team of individuals that want change. I heard a couple of things, defund the police and give the money to the youth programming and to mental health care. I think what we need to do is bring the money to everyone and bring enough of it, where people can have enough officers, where they're not overworked, where you have enough individuals that can be trained and skilled in mental health care. I believe when we did our conversation with the chiefs with the NAACP, the one thing, I'm not sure which chief said it, but we all knew he was correct. He said they are the biggest providers for mental health care, and that shouldn't be so for the police officers. So the one thing that I appreciate is that we're here. I'm 65. I watched it happen in 1968, 78, all the way through. But this is the first time I've seen this. So I'm very excited to see your shirt, to understand that being quiet while we watch these things is not right. I'm glad that you know as a young lady at Churchill High School that what you saw was not right. And even more importantly, I'm glad that the chiefs and the mayors here know it's not right. So something will happen now, and I appreciate that.
I just wanted to add to what you're saying about defunding the police. Just to clarify, it is spreading money equally to everyone. It's, the police force, a lot of places, basically everywhere, have most of the funds. And it's about making sure it's divided equally and making sure that funds aren't used for things it shouldn't, i.e. military-grade weapons. Places do not need those to serve community.
You have a thought?
I agree with everything that everybody here has said, and I'm from the city of Plymouth, which is 94% white. And we obviously need more diversity in our community. And I think there's a tendency, there were protests in Plymouth, in downtown Plymouth, which was great. There were hundreds of people there. But I think we have a tendency in these communities to think that this police brutality would not happen here. But I don't think that that's true at all. But I think what we're going to need is transparency, like you said. We're going to need, why can't we know what the use of force policies are? Why don't we know what percentage of the budget, of the whole city budget, goes to police? Why don't we know what happens when there are police complaints? All of these things, we need a lot more transparency and accountability.
Thank you.
Okay, I know you had asked what area that you wanted people to look at, so I wanted to say community involvement with the police officers. especially as it relates to our young people. So I know that young people's first encounter most of the time with the police is a negative, and we definitely need to change that. So I know some cities do have a community resource officer, and that officer is not the one that normally will be called out to do the arrest. So I think all of the police officers need to have some time of their shift spent dealing with the community. So that one community resource officer, everybody has a good relationship with that person, but that's not the person that's going to be there when they get stopped. So when they come out, they don't know anything. You know, back in the day when we grew up, the police officers lived on our street. They were in our neighborhood, so they knew us. They were not going to arrest me. They was going to call my mama. They was going to call my daddy. And then I would get in trouble at home, but they were not going to arrest me. And I would not have a record at the age of 15 because I did something stupid like most 15, 16, 17-year-olds do. But when a African-American kid gets stopped by a police officer who knows nothing about them, they have something now on their record that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives because they did something that I bet the police officer did when he was 15, 16, and 17 years old. But they're held accountable to it for the rest of their lives, and that goes into not just, that's economic disparities that we have, because now their earning potential is low because now there's some jobs they cannot get because, one, they have to check the box on the application. So that stop that could have been used better judgment, yeah, they might have did something stupid, but if you just give them a chance, like they give other people, their lives, their family lives would be a lot better. So that's the interaction that I think definitely needs to happen.
So you brought up some specific situations that you're talking about where people have had a negative encounter with law enforcement or an elected official. One of the other kind of two questions that I'm going to ask for sake of time, so you can pick how you want to respond, but we were wondering if you could share a positive and or a negative interaction that you have had with law enforcement or an elected official. We want to know what components made that negative or positive, and kind of share what are some things that you would have wished would have been done differently, or if it was something positive, what was that thing that you feel should be done everywhere? So you talked about going to talk to parents or having this relationship. So that would be an example of this would be a practice that I would like to see because it worked really well. So thinking about your experiences, a positive or negative experience, and what made it that way, and what recommendations do you have because of it?
I'd like to say that 2 years ago, I was pulled over by, or in Westland, by a Westland police officer, and he was the product of what I'm assuming is a real clear vision and exceptional training. I know it's exceptional training because of the way he behaved, the way he conducted himself. He was outstanding in terms of the way he approached me, in terms of the way he spoke with me. The degree of courtesy was really beyond compare. It was an amazing experience for me, despite the fact I got a ticket I had to pay $120 for. My point is that doesn't come out of the ether. It just doesn't happen. Some people are nicer than others, but this gentleman had some real exceptional training experiences. And the reason I knew it was exceptional was because of his behavior. It was very, very clear. And that starts with a clear vision. So someone at the top has to say, this is the way we want our citizens to feel subsequent to an experience with our police force. And then someone has to do the training that makes that possible. And then the people who are involved in that training have to take it into their heart. And this individual did so. So I would have to commend certainly him again, as well as the people that led him, starting with the police chief and perhaps the mayor as well. It starts with a clear vision.
Thank you. Want to go ahead?
Hello. Okay, sorry.
I had a positive interaction with a police officer of the city of Inkster. His name was Officer Bourne. It was last year. It was my first day driving to work by myself. I literally just purchased my first car for my birthday. I'm like, whoa, independence, woohoo. On my way to work, get into a car accident. And so I'm just like, I'm emotional, my car, I'm crying, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get a ticket, this is horrible. And then so the officer, he was just so compassionate, so nice, so sympathetic. He calmed me down, gave me some water. The truck drivers that was there, they helped me a lot. But the officer, he just was so nice. And like, he could have been a butthole, could have been like, whoops, sorry, here's a ticket, go on. But he didn't do that. He made sure that I was calm before I continued my drive to work. And he just made sure, he just told me, you know, be safe, pay attention, watch what you're doing. I know you're a new driver, so just slow down, you know. And so it was an exceptional experience. So that really made my day, because, you know, if I would have got a ticket, he could have been mean, then that would have just made the whole experience even worse. And so he was really, really nice.
Go ahead.
My interaction with police has been pleasant. I've only been stopped twice, but very professional. But what I want to talk of is anecdotal. I live in Livonia, been a resident for 30 years, raised our family in Livonia. I was raised in Detroit, and Halloween night, our street's very busy. It's a half-mile road. It's very busy, and a lot of families come from out of our neighborhood to come to our neighborhood. And it's very, and what I've noticed the last 2 years are police officers in their cars with their flashers going, getting out of their car, going up to the sidewalk, giving out candy to all the children. And it didn't matter to them what kind of children they are. And so that really showed my grandchildren, and I'm sure all the other, but I can just speak for myself. My grandchildren were very impressed with that a big policeman gave them candy. And to me, that is something that that shows the humanity in a police officer. And I agree with everything else I've heard up here, but that's really what I want to offer today.
Thank you.
So I think the reason that we're in this room in these conversations is because your experience is not the typical experience. My experience with the police is my sister called them with my nephew in the middle of a psychotic episode. He was shot and killed by the police. He was supposed to be protected. They knew what the problem was. There are officers that are trained in DC where my brother lives because it's such a high veterans population. When they're in the middle of a crisis, they send a whole different team for them. So I think we need to understand that the individuals that we're talking about today don't get the candy. When they're stopped, they don't see grandpa. They don't see a woman. When you're a black and you're a man, it's a whole different story. And I think that's the conversation that we're gonna have to have. My nephew was the father of an 8-year-old. He weighed 112 pounds. They knew he was sick. They asked him, some officers in Maryville, how are you? Your mother called for a welfare check. He said, I'm okay. He drove down the street 15 minutes later at the Ford dealer, he was dead. So those are processes that have been dropped and a million other things. I know if he would have been of a different race, he would still be sitting in the car today until help came for him. They wouldn't have called him out and shot him in the back. And that's what happened to my nephew. So we have to have those conversations as well.
And I'm going to let you, because we need to start your transition, but I would just want to make sure, is there any other thoughts about, because there was one that Pastor Overman mentioned about specifically, this was a negative incident, if there would have been another team that came out. So when you think about a negative experience, what could have made it different? You want to go? And that might not have been where you were going with, but.
Okay, so when I think of a negative experience, I'm gonna say my experience and then kind of say how I think wish it could have went better. My little brother has been followed home by Lavonia police twice. He lives in Redford, and just being in witness of that, being on the porch, they had their lights off. He's never done anything in his life. I mean, there's other instances where he had guns drawn on him, and I was in the car, and he did nothing again. There was no crime committed. So, I mean, in terms of things like that, it's, making sure this footage on their body cam is reviewed every day on a daily basis, even a live feed to make sure they're doing what they should be doing, and making sure that these officers, once finding that out, are terminated immediately. And I also think just making sure that the local government signs things, posts letters, things saying that they can't be hired again at another place or paid after that.
Thank you. And one more comment.
Okay, and this is a really simple thing, but it speaks to the abuse of power that we saw up here earlier. And this has happened to me more than once, where a police car will come up with lights on from behind, and so I pull over to the side to let them pass, only to see them, pull over somewhere else and, not appearing to be on any official business, I'll just say. Running through a red light, like they'll be behind you a couple cars, and the red light is taking too long, and turn on the lights, run through the red light, and then turn them back off again. And I don't know how common that is, but I've seen it several times, and of course I can't know what the call was, but the appearance is I'm just using my power to get where I want to go. And it's those little things that, can give somebody a bad name or a bad idea about the authority and the power.
So one of the questions that we are not going to get to answer in this moment, but I am going to ask you all to reflect on it so that you can share it either at another or when I send out follow-ups, is to kind of think about all of these things that you all are sharing. If you had a positive outcome, if there was a positive outcome from this event or from going forward, there's been protesters and speak outs, what would that positive outcome look like? So think about what that vision is. I think someone mentioned that. So can everyone give our fishies a hand? And we're going to switch out. I'm going to wipe the seat down a little bit. If you can even wipe your seat down before you walk out, that would be great too. But I'm going to ask people to go to Poll Everywhere again, pollev.com/DAICIAPRICE 740. Or you can use the text message option and use the keyword listen. What did you hear? What are some things that stood out for you? So people shared stories, they shared ideas, all of those things. What did you hear? Okay. Thank you. So I just want to take a moment to just kind of, this is going to show up. And so people who were speaking, I wonder if that was the message that they were trying to send. What people heard, is that what they were trying to share? So we see things like accountability, privilege, transparency, education, unequal, but I also heard some trainings up there again. I also see that some people felt that there was some beating around the bush. And again, when we talk about dialogue, everyone wants to go to dialogue, but we have to think about, first, we have to kind of check what we're hearing and and sometimes think about what we're saying. So when you look at this, so people who were participating in the fishbowl, think about what you shared, what you heard, and see if this matches up with what you were hoping people could hear, because we're going to follow up with those things. Okay? So now I would like to invite, and want to make sure, because there's a lot of official-looking people, but there's only a few official people that's getting in one of these Trojan chairs. So we're going to invite people who are participants to come on up and take a seat so that we can start our questions. Jordan, can you help with that? You're going to help with that? Okay. Vulnerability, white privilege. Okay. Perception drives opinion. That's actually a big part. So like what we hear also is going to make an impact on what we experience and what that looks like. And I just really appreciate people for reflecting what they've heard. And we will be reviewing them to kind of get a sense of what, to evaluate what we're doing right now. Hello. Do you all remember the rules? You understand what you're doing here? Okay. Agreements, you guys remember them? Okay, see, this is the problem. Let me see. You guys know, now I'm the boss. Okay? I'm the boss. Right here. Okay? Those are the rules. We're all teachers and learners. Be mindful of your airtime. Use I statements. Refrain from using obscene, violent, abusive language. And everyone is an expert of their own experience. Okay? All right. Now, the first question we have for you all is, with respect to your job interacting with the public, people want you to name one thing that you think you should start doing, one thing you should stop doing, and one thing you should continue to do. One thing that you should start doing, one thing you should stop doing, and one thing you should continue to do. Are you ready? Oh, I thought you were taking your mask off because you were ready.
I turned it on. So I think one thing that I need to do, and we should all be more cognizant of, is civility and treating people in a way that we would hope we would be treated. Even when we are offended, we can still be civil, and I would hope that as an employer and as a peer, that I could be more civil and be treated more civilly.
Okay. Anything that you feel like you should stop doing and something you would want to continue doing? Or anyone else?
Being here is a start.
Okay.
So
you want to continue doing this?
Yeah, this is tough. It's hard for me. Thank you. It's hard for me because I felt when I was listening to the other group that people weren't being really totally honest or really direct. And I would like to see us be able to have those very frank conversations in a very civil way.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a mic?
So one of the things that occurs to me as a mayor, as a leader, is that I think that one of the things that we have to stop doing is thinking that everybody knows what we're doing. I think there's a need for more information. There's obviously a need for more transparency in the way we're communicating. I think in the city of Livonia, we have a rich history of putting a lot of information out there for the community. It would be my hope that we would be able to direct that more to those issues and answering those questions which appear to be most important for people. And I think that's one of the things that came out of a lot of the protests that we've seen recently is that, people have been really direct about asking questions and wanting to know what the data is around it and wanting to know what the numbers are. And we as a city, we owe that to them. So I think we have to start providing more of that information in a more transparent fashion. In terms of something that I think that we need to start doing, and I heard this, I think, pretty loud and clear from the panel before us, is we really have to start embedding more of that mental health service into our police department. Finding a way to bring it into our community more, finding a way to really offer it more. We have seen in Lavonia an increase in the amount of runs that we've had dealing with domestic issues, dealing with mental health issues, largely as a result of COVID. People just got really wrapped up in where they were and the circumstances that they were in. And so I think we need to make sure that we're able to provide more of that type of service. In terms of something that I'd like to see us continue to do, I love the dialogue that we had here today. A lot of what we've done in Livonia in terms of maintaining that dialogue is we have a Citizens Police Academy. We actually train citizens every year along the same lines as our police department is trained. And I think that until we begin to do that in each one of our departments, we're always going to have these misunderstandings about what gets done and what needs to be done. So I think that goes a long way to doing that thing that we all find so important, and that's walking in somebody else's shoes.
And if I could add just real quick to that, one thing that I've gotten a lot out of, not only tonight, but all the lessons that we're learning as a result of what happened in Minneapolis, is perception. And I have a much better appreciation of perception of what we do as police officers or serving our community. And as well-intentioned that the officers may be, that sometimes their actions are perceived to be opposite of what they're trying to accomplish. And is going forward, the event here tonight certainly, and going forward in the other communities on a monthly basis, this is a great opportunity for all of us to learn more about each other and learn more about each other's background and their conclusions and how we're doing our jobs, how we're serving our communities, and how we can get better at it. Because we all want to do that. I know I can speak for all of us here as police chiefs, is that we're committed to our communities, we're committed to the region, that's why we're all here, and there's others that are here that could not take the stage. And there's no one more committed to professionalism and reaching that point of really servant attitude towards with our community than the folks that are up here. I've known all of them, all the police chiefs, and many of the electeds for a number of years. And they're a group, and I know I'm supposed to be talking about but it includes me, really a group of really dedicated people that see the things that we have seen on the television that, quite frankly, make us sick to our stomach, because that's not what we're about. But it's, unfortunately, as a result of that, these tragic events, we find ourselves, facing some realities and willing to work with that and learn from that and make our communities better.
And as Chief Cade said, it's extremely important for us to continue these dialogues with the residents, because we are constantly improving, and we need to improve in some areas, and these dialogues help. Everybody up here, all the police chiefs and elected, we're all up here for the same reason, and it's great to see the residents come out tonight for this dialogue, and also looking at procedural-wise procedures to change within the department, within policing as well. Like I said, we can always improve and always looking for ways to improve. But I know someone that was up earlier had spoke about a mental health call, And unfortunately, we get sent on a lot of mental health calls, and police are called upon to do a lot in society. And we do train. We train the best we can, but we would love to have the experts help as well. And there are departments that are now partnering with the experts to help handle those mental health calls to prevent that. Over the years, we went 20 years ago from having someone going through a bad mental episode, being armed in a home, to calling out SWAT and trying to get into the home, to now disengaging. And because we don't want to force jeopardy or have anyone hurt during the situation. So we're making strides, but we can always do better.
Anyone else want to share something you think you should start doing, stop doing, or that you should continue to do?
I just want to add on to that. I think we need to start communicating more. I think that when expectations are unmet, it's when you get frustration and anger. And I think that the policing profession, myself included, we often, when we're criticized, we just think, well, they don't know what they're talking about, and we think we're supposed to be the bigger person and just take the criticism, and we're silent. And I think that adds to the problem. And we've been traditionally afraid to ask for help. We think that whatever our mission is, we're supposed to be able to handle it. But the mental health thing is a perfect example where we're asked to deal with something we don't have the tools for. So we can train officers, but it's not like somebody who's a professional that deals with people with mental illness every day. So I think we need to seek more partnerships. I think we need to communicate better, because I think so much frustration comes from just not understanding what we do or the amount of resources we have or don't have.
Were you going to add something?
Thank you. Bill Wildmere, the City of Westland. Chief Cade mentioned a word, perception, and I think this is something that I've got to get better at, is that as a mayor, sometimes we really like to think that everything we're doing is right, that we have a vision that's better than everybody else's, is that we're the leader in this, and we kind of get caught up on, we look at the things that I guess that make us look good. But if we're doing all these things that we're telling everybody that we're great at, but the perception out there is that there's a problem, I think that's something that I have to get better at personally, is that we've done a lot of good things in our town and our police department, I think, as a leader in a lot of different ways. But if the perception on the street, or even if the perception in the region is that you don't want to drive through the city of Westland, then that's something that we have to work on. I can tell you that another thing that mayors like to talk about, the things that we like to talk about. We tend to talk about the things that we're doing really good or that we're proud of. But I think that one of the things that I have to do more of as a mayor is that I have to use the position to have conversations about the things that we don't want to talk about, or the things that do make us feel uncomfortable, or the things that don't make us look so good. So that's something that I'm going to try to do. And then, what's one of the things that I think that we are good at that I'm going to continue to do, and that's going to be is keeping Westland at the table. I mean, this is a national issue that we're taking a swing at here regionally, and I'm going to try to have myself and as many people from Westland at the table, because we do want to be a part of the solution.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments or people want to respond to that specific thing, did you want to add to that one? Okay.
John Racy, I'm the mayor of Wayne. I think one of the things that, for myself, I think just educating yourself on things that you may not know. I think that's a big thing that people don't realize. The Juneteenth, I don't think people really understood that till just in the last few weeks that you start hearing about that. As you do your own research about things, take the time to spend doing that. I have many black friends that I feel I don't see things that way, but I understand what's going on. I think we just need to take the time to listen to each other more and hear each other out. I think this is a great start. I think it's something that is long overdue, and people just need to respect each other. You know, people need to love each other. I know for my city, it's very difficult. When I heard defunding the police, that it's hard for me to hear when I don't have enough funds to fund my police, let alone defund them. I think that we don't realize the budgets that sometimes the cities are under and what you have to work with. I have great officers, and I know that there's things that they can improve on. But I have a very diverse community, and just try to listen and do things. I've got officers that they'll go out and spend time with the kids. They'll play football out when they can, but they're very limited on their resources because I don't have enough people on the street. So when there's other calls, those things take priority. I mean, it's sad right now that we're dealing with fireworks right now. It seems to be the bigger thing in our cities, that people are all upset about fireworks. Yet when you're trying to have other conversations, they don't want to talk about those things. So it's trying to really look at what is the thing that you really need to be talking about, and focusing on things that really mean something.
So you've mentioned diversity, and so one of the things that is an obvious difference is the makeup of the panel and now and the panel before when people look at diversity, right? Yep. And so one of the things that people want to know is what are the ways that you all, or what, let me make sure I don't put my own stuff in here. Okay. So what are ways that people want to know what the demographics are of officers in your agency and elected officials and appointed folks, and what is being done to improve that picture? So, or to improve, change the picture that we see right now.
Yeah. I can speak for my city. I've got about 20%, just a little over 20% minorities in my department. And you know, a lot of it has to do with the people that come to want to interview. Mm-hmm. And I've got positions open. We're looking for people. So if you know people that want to join a police force that are good people, we'd love to talk to them and interview them. I know in my city, we have a stringent testing, and they go through all sorts of things to just make sure that you have the right, they take a lot of precautions and go through different phases as in their interview process to try to make sure that you don't have problems later. And we've been very lucky that way because we have, from my city, I mean, we have chiefs that are all over this area. They came out of my city, and very proud of them. So we've got multiple chiefs, and one of them sitting up here today. That's now next to me. So yeah, I think that there's definitely, for sure.
Okay, so anyone else want to say, what are some things that you're doing to, if you want to share, if you know the demographics of your agency, what does that look like, and what are you doing to increase diversity?
Hi, thank you. So I'm from Westland. Our department is only about 10% minority. It includes, females too. It's kind of the kind of forgotten minority. I think just what I wanted to kind of say that I think is sometimes forgotten is, oftentimes people say, well, how come, Detroit can hire African Americans so easily and, some of the suburban cities don't? And what often is forgotten is that cities like Detroit have their own police academy, and they fund putting people through the academy, where some of the smaller communities don't have the funds to put people through the academy. And I think that's what we're seeing now with a lot of our departments is we're starting to come up with ways with police service aid programs and Explorer programs where we're hiring people on a part-time basis, usually college kids or somebody that you get to work in your department for a while, get to know them, and then give them the ability to take some tests and sponsor them through the academy. I think that's what a lot of the departments up here are now starting to do, but that is one of the biggest challenges. And the overall lack of applicants. Dating myself, I've been with the department for 25 years, and when I tested for my department, I tested with about 500 applicants, and we just closed our most recent hiring process, and we had 3 applicants, period. And 2 of them were employees already of the department, so it's not only is it difficult to attract minority applicants, but it's difficult to attract anybody to the field of law enforcement right now in general. So when there is minority applicants, every department up here is trying to diversify the same, and these applicants are hard to come by, and they're snatched up pretty quick.
I could just build on that for just a minute as well, is, you know, I've got 27 open positions for the rank of police officer. And we tested yesterday, and there were 2 applicants for those positions. And this has been an ongoing issue, you know, in law enforcement, and it's a national problem as well, is we want the best of the best. You know, when we see things go wrong, a lot of times, and I can't say this across the board, sometimes the quality of the applicant is, you can see the warning signs, and is what's been brought up here today and other times as well, or other groups, is getting rid of bad apples. And I'm all about that. We're all about that. But it is a very, very challenging problem for our society when we have such a difficult time recruiting people for this career path, especially people of color. It's, you know, we go out to high schools, community colleges, MSU frequently, and unfortunately with COVID, that put all that on the shelf. We weren't able to do any of that in the spring, but we are out aggressively recruiting folks for positions in Livonia. And everyone here, I would suggest, is in the same boat where they're trying to hire people, and there's just very, very few applicants. In our FTO program, Field Training Officer program, we wash out 20% of those folks on average. So we have standards, and we expect certain standards out of folks for performance and how they treat the community. And if they're not there, then they move on. And we hold these folks accountable. But this has been a very challenging time. I've been police chief since 2011. Tomorrow is my 41st year with the city of Livonia. I've seen a lot, and I've never seen the challenges that we have before us in developing folks and bringing people on board, and the challenges that are before us. We're much more, I think about my career when I started in 1979 and where we're at today. These folks today, the majority of them are college graduates. They are good people, really committed to doing the job, and there is so much at their feet. We talk about the mental health crisis, and I could spend an hour just talking about that specifically. Opioid addiction, all the social ills that our society sees and deals with, many of them rest at the feet of our police officers with very few resources to deal with. We're fortunate really in Wayne County, in Western Wayne County, that we have some resources for us to deal with that. But that is truly a crisis that we've been going through with the mental health interventions, the opioid issues that are still there, and we're dealing with routinely. And our officers, I think probably all of our officers here have Narcan, and the amount of lives that we have saved because of Narcan, and you know, helping families.
So you mentioned a lot of things, and I'm going to try, because it kind of goes into some of the other things that people wanted to really ask about and was brought up in the panel earlier. And one of them was about, even with knowing that there's a difficulty in recruiting officers and officials to be in these positions, what is being done in regards to training? Is there training specifically about the history of racism, history of policing, implicit bias and diversity, to minimize the challenges around racial profiling? So what training is, because one of the big things that people were talking about is racial profiling, and what does that mean? And one question was about diversity, but if you're sharing these things about diversity, what are the training and tools that are provided to new officers to reduce that issue or minimize or to try to eradicate racial profiling and issues that come up with that?
Can I answer 2 questions, sure. The last one, and then, so to give more perspective on what the chief was saying, our agency is focused on the same challenging processes as everyone else, and of the last 15 officers we've hired, 40% have been minorities, but the challenge is all of those officers have come from their departments. We reach out and we recruit everywhere, but that small pool of applicants is really coming from other agencies. So as I diversify my agency, I'm taking minorities from their agencies. And so that's a challenge that we face in the region. The shortage of applicants we all face, but then we're shifting good officers between the agencies. So how do we address that? And then to the training question, I think it goes back to the beginning where we're talking about transparency and the need to, we need to do a better job communicating what we are doing. And in all of the calls about setting this up and moving forward, so many of the things that people are asking for reforms to come forward, these agencies are doing. So the majority of these agencies are accredited agencies that requires bias-based policing practices, that prohibits it, and policies that establish that we're looking at demographics, looking for trends. We're giving implicit bias training and identifying that with our officers, identifying those things, not just doing a traditional diversity training, but we're not communicating that to our communities.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Al Cox from Plymouth. I would kind of jump on the same thing that the chief from Northville Township just said, is that, you know, the training is now out there, bias-based policing, procedural justice, and ethics. There's training for all these things at every level, from the line officers all the way up to the supervisors. And basically that training is out there and being offered so that at the supervisor level, so the supervisors are getting the training, they're being taught to recognize things that perhaps in the past were not recognized, recognize if they're to encounter that and to address it immediately. It's taught at the line officers level, hey, this is what it is and don't do it. When you go through the police academy, they're constantly, you know, MCOLS is always updating and adding to the curriculum that is required for every police officer that comes to the academy. As Chief Cade spoke of earlier, you know, most officers these days have college educations. They come through, you know, either a 2-year or a 4-year school, and most of them, not all, but most of them are criminal justice majors. You can't get through a criminal justice program without learning the history of law enforcement. In Criminal Justice 101, that's going to talk about the history of law enforcement, and it does touch on some of the negative past, when you go back decades, things that were done that over time, various training has been brought in. And if you look at the police departments across this country, going back to, we'll say, the 60s, you look at the police departments back then and you look at the police departments now, there is a significant difference. Law enforcement in the 60s and even before that was not looked on as a profession. It was looked on as a job. You had people coming out of wars that would come home and say, well, I don't have any skills, what can I do? Well, I'll be a cop. And now, you know, as you've come through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and on up, law enforcement had a lot of case law that came out in the late 60s and early 70s because you had these officers that were not trained appropriately and were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. Case law came out altogether in the late 60s and early 70s, and the profession or the law enforcement career field started recognizing we need better training. Training started to come in. There's so much training out there now, and that is what has turned law enforcement into a profession. Yes, you have some bad people out there that do stupid things. Every profession has it, and we've got it as well. But overall, there's nobody that can't stand a bad cop more than the rest of law enforcement. Nobody hates bad cops more than the good cops. So now it's a profession where we're trained, you recognize it and you deal with it, and you know, we intervene. We are told to intervene, we are taught to intervene, and our policies say that we intervene, and we intervene.
So because I just realized what time it is, you guys going out of time. I do want to it's kind of a roll call question because you can just say yes or no, because it's a yes or no question. Are you supportive of engaging with non-lethal trained officers or responders that can triage crisis situations such as mental health needs? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, did you want to say something, Paul, before?
Just to go beyond the yes, that the Western Wayne community has worked on a pilot program and has been doing that for 1.5 years. So multiple agencies in this group work with mental health providers, bring crisis teams out to the community to try to provide mental health resources in situations to de-escalate that and to reduce the potential for use of force, and to truly bring that intervention to people. And it's early intervention. It's not the crisis where someone is psychotic and they're going to the hospital for an emergency petition. It's when we evaluate and there may not be anything that you can do with the mental health code to do a handoff. So your agencies are doing that with mental health professionals right now.
And I just wanted to, because I want to make sure that I officially wrap up at 7:30, so if something keeps going, it won't be my fault, even though it's my first time. It's my what time? First time, okay. So I want you all to respond to what you heard, but there's a couple of things I just want to acknowledge is that, one, this is not an easy thing to do for civilians or law enforcement and elected officials. And so some people, I did hear people asking, well, who are certain people? Who is it? We wanted to give everybody an equal opportunity to not have to say that. We don't want the citizens to feel like they have to disclose who they are. And we really want this group to start thinking of themselves as a collective group and not as individual standalones, because they're representing Western Wayne, right? And so I want to just acknowledge that some of that was intentional so that you don't walk away and feel like people are trying to hide something. No, we said all of the people who are represented. That's why we want to be transparent about that in the beginning, but also to encourage people to start being more vulnerable. And this is our first time, and we hope to continue to do that. So, it's hard, people here, another white panel, disinterest, I'm learning, Bush, same old, hard to find and keep good help, try not do. So these are things that people heard. And so again, it's gonna be important for them to think about what did they say, what did people hear them say, so that we can move forward in the way that we proceed. Because if we can't hear each other, if we're not able to say what we want people to hear, that's a big part of the challenge. And that's definitely been something that people have said, is about that transparency and communication. So some of the things that we're gonna do for next steps is that the information has been shared electronically, on notes, all around. They're going to receive it de-identified so that they can start thinking about partnering with community members, think about what are some priorities that people are saying need to happen right away, and be able to identify measurable steps to be able to report those out. So what we hope to do is that every time we have a meeting, there will be updates for people, and those would be things that we would share at the beginning. Okay, so that it's not just more the same. Today it might feel like more the same, but it's gonna take all of us to try to do something different. Okay, so I just want to thank everybody. It is 7:31. Boom. Please, the next one will be in August in Inkster. Again, we will ask for people to sign up if they would like to be participants as community members. We definitely appreciate that. You will communicate directly with me, and we'll continue to bring these questions and concerns and comments. Maybe one day we need to stay later than an hour and a half. Okay? All right. Thank you all so much, and thank you all. Give our fishies a hand.